Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Don't Risk It podcast presented by VFIS Client Risk Solutions. This program focuses on the exposures our clients frequently encounter and discusses some potential solutions to help reduce these exposures. I'm your host, Chris Rogers with VFIS Client Risk Solutions, and today we're talking about junior membership programs. Joining me on the program today are Rachel Breen and Greg Lidstrom from the VFIS Underwriting Department and Dave Bradley from the Client Risk Solutions team. They're joining the program to discuss best practices for departments with a junior member program. I want to thank you all for joining me today, and it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you, Chris.
Great to be here, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Absolutely. So a junior member program liability, it can be a large exposure for an emergency service organization. What can an organization do to better protect their members and youth from the possibility of an unfortunate occurrence?
Hey, thanks again for having us, Chris. Yes, from an underwriting perspective, we do write abuse coverage on our general liability policy. And what we're looking at there is we're looking for organizations to have an abuse prevention policy in place, and both written, and they need to have annual training on the policy. Within that policy, we're basically looking them to have specific definition to what they include for abuse. We want them to have reporting procedures, anti-retaliation and false allegation instructions, and investigation and follow-up procedures. And then they also need to make sure they have appropriate reporting to law enforcement and appropriate employee screening and member screening for that policy.
So what are some of the duty or activity limitations an organization might consider in regards to junior members?
I can take that one, Chris. You look at when junior members are coming and going. There should only be certain times when they're allowed to be, based on whether it be school, whether a school prohibits certain times that they can be at other locations, child labor laws and things like that. But they shouldn't have direct access to a station. They should only be able to access it when other adult trained members are there, and there should be specific times. There should be no overnight stays, with the exception of, there may be some weather-related things that are allowed in some of the different state laws, but it should be limited to a certain amount of time when they can be there with at least two trained adults.
What about, we often get this question in risk control, what about emergency response? Is that something that they should be able to do, or is that something that we frown upon? Can you elaborate on that?
Again, it really goes back to the state and what the state allows. What we see in multiple states is they can respond to emergency situations, but at the scene they become a gopher. They are not allowed to climb ladders. They're not allowed to use any extrication tools or electronic or battery-operated tools. They can't enter any dangerous environments. A lot of organizations prohibit them, and a lot of state guidelines prohibit them from responding to highway scenes or certain EMS calls and things like that. So there are prohibitions in those areas.
So it's best to check your authority having jurisdiction to see what limitations they might have in regards to emergency response. So are there any additional items that we should consider in regards to junior members versus what we've obviously went over already?
Yes, Chris. The department needs to make sure that they're processing background checks. We would say that they need to process background checks on everybody, but it's very important for them to be background checked on the people that are involved in the junior program. We want to make sure that the organization understands what those people have done in their past and that they're okay with it, that they're involved with the junior members. Another thing we want them to do is limit or not have any one-on-one contact with the junior members. We want to protect the members of the department and make sure, and the junior member themselves, that there was never an accusation made to them, and so we would never want them to be one-on-one with that junior member.
So, and Rachel, those are good points. In addition to those, from a risk standpoint, some of the things we look at when we go in and meet with an emergency service organization, again, back to the criminal background checks, you touched on that. We want to make sure they do training specific to their harassment policies, bullying, privacy, sexual abuse, sexual harassment, all of those different areas. And it's really nice. We have some great resources for them to be able to review all that with all of their adult and junior members and have a sign-off. So there is a documentation that training occurred, and we recommend that training reoccurs annually. We also suggest heavy parental involvement, so there should be a parental consent form before these juniors can even apply to an organization. There should be something from the parents that says, yes, we're in favor of that. Some states require a release from the school, or that the school understands, and we've talked about child labor laws and things like that. We talked about station access. We talked about activities where they can participate and where they can't. Bottom line is there's additional items organizations can do, and if all of those areas are covered very well, this is a great training opportunity for new members to join your department when they become adults.
You mentioned parental consent and some other, sign-offs and whatnot. So is there there should definitely be a formal application process for a junior member to come to an organization to apply for this?
Absolutely. And it's comprehensive, and it goes through the application process, the school release, the parental release, along with all the policies and procedures.
Well, you mentioned in your comments, or a couple of comments ago, about VFIS having some resources. Can you elaborate on what resources that VFIS does have to assist with junior member programs?
Sure. One of the things specific to background checks is we have a relationship with IntelliCorp, which provides discounted background checks. Additionally, we have policies on or policy guidelines on harassment, on sexual abuse and misconduct. And again, all those resources are on our website. Also, best to check with your state. Several states have a guideline that is a junior program outline, sometimes 40, 50, 60 pages, that is specifically put out by the state. And then some of the national organizations have guidelines for junior programs.
Well, Greg, Dave, Rachel, it was a pleasure to chat with you all. Thank you all for the great information and giving us some insight into junior members, and hopefully help our listeners out in this area.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
And I want to thank you for listening to the program and for your interest in VFIS safety resources. I want to thank our guests Rachel Breen, Greg Lidstrom, and Dave Bradley once again for their time and information. Please consider subscribing to our program to stay up to date on new content releases. Also, if you like what you've heard, please consider leaving a review below. For more information about the many resources available from VFIS, please visit VFIS.com. And to submit ideas for future discussions, please reach out by email at VFISriskcontrol@VFIS.com. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Gladfelter Insurance Group, VFIS, and its employees.